John Swinney, he stated that his kind of take on it was every death related to drug misuse is one too many, and drug deaths in Scotland remain far too high. The Thistle Centre is not a silver bullet, but it is another significant step forward and will complement other efforts to reduce harm and death.
We need to look at a therapeutic balance, right? And there's so much research being done. If you look at mutual aid groups, if you look at Alcoholics Anonymous, CA, NA, look at the research done around that, right?
Certainly one of the positives of the mobile van would be a reduction in stigma as well, if the individuals are already within their local area. I think it would help there, do you know what I mean? Rather than travelling into a specific...
When I was younger and I grew up, there was honour amongst thieves, right? And I know that sounds like so shady, but there was morals against the underworld, there was values.
So welcome to Social Sessions. Today we're joined with Natalie and Andy, and we're going to be talking about the safe consumption room and just kind of looking at the kind of landscape of drugs just now in Scotland and looking at where we are. So Andy, can you try to introduce yourself?
Yep, my name's Andy. I work in community-based service in Coatbridge. This is my first time ever been on a podcast, so quite excited and nervous, aye. But no, it's nice to be here, nice to meet you, Natalie, and looking forward to the discussion.
Natalie, you've got a season ticket here.
I've got a season ticket now, Sean. I am a proud owner of Social Sessions. My name's Natalie Logan. I'm the Chief Exec of SISCO. We're a criminal justice organisation charity. I guess every time I come on to Social Sessions, though, I'm not here to represent SISCO. I'm here to represent the voices of people that don't have one, and that is typically the men and women incarcerated in the walls of prison, and the people that are no longer here, sadly.
Which is getting more and more, and obviously we'll wait till statistics come out, and we'll try and get one, and we'll try and nail one down, see if Tommy Ross can go on, and Francis, who was supposed to be on today. But we're looking at Hunter Street. What's your views on it? Like, obviously, I'll just open the floor. Like, what's your views? I mean, my views are no very, very positive, but I'll just open the floor to you. What do you think?
Can I just say before we start, he's unlikely to watch this podcast, but I want to wish my dad a happy birthday. He's 71 today. So
happy birthday.
I don't know
What's
if
his name?
Gordon.
Happy birthday,
I don't know
Gordon.
if he,
Happy birthday, Gordon.
I don't know if he watches YouTube and stuff like that, but, so I don't know if he'll see it, but it is his birthday today, so happy birthday, Dad. So the consumption room's now been open since, the 13th of January. Obviously, I don't stay in the Glasgow area, so I've never actually been present at it, but following it through newspaper articles and stuff like that, it sounds pretty negative. I was looking through certain news articles before I came on here, and unfortunately, I couldn't necessarily find any real positives about this. Barring the one article I read where it reported that it had saved 17 people from fatal overdoses within the service. And if you read following sort of subsequent newspaper reports, that's what they seem to be holding on to. Whether it be workers within there, the manager,
Which I suppose it's saving any lives.
It's positive, but again, it's what we spoke about right at the start with the consumption room. It's what comes after it, isn't it? There doesn't seem to be much through care for people.
No.
And that's sort of backed up in some of the newspaper articles that I've read. The most recent one was just been last Sunday, actually.
I think it's what you hearing on the streets, Natalie.
The same as I spoke about the last time, Sean. The general consensus is people are not going to go down to a safe consumption room to use drugs. We can't have one isolated location. And I think probably, again, the most frustrating thing is we're constantly shouting about harm reduction, harm reduction, harm reduction. And I'm now lost in what does harm reduction mean? Because for me, what I see is a 90% investment that goes into a medical model, leaving 10%, small fraction for that therapeutic support, and it's not working. So if we're currently investing 90% in safe consumption rooms and saying, like, this is an element of harm reduction, a small amount of people will get naloxone and they'll leave there, but what are we doing to keep them well? What we're doing in Scotland now is we're just saying, you're just good enough for us to keep you alive, but you're not good enough for us to get you well. That's what I interpret. If you're only giving 10% resources to something therapeutic, it's like saying to people, cancer patients, you don't deserve chemotherapy, but we're going to give you a wee bit of radiotherapy. You know, it's just the stigma that's attached to, we need to look at a therapeutic balance, right? And there's so much research being done. If you look at mutual aid groups, if you look at Alcoholics Anonymous, CA, NA, look at the research done around that, right? Professor David Best has done lots and lots of research about mutual aid. Look at the amount of people that get well without services attached, right? So we need to really, what I would like you to do a podcast on, because I think it would be quite interesting, is the hierarchy of the alcohol and drug partnerships, the power imbalance of the ADPs and the integrated joint boards, and the lack of co-production for individuals like us, professionals with lived experience, going into co-design policy and co-implement it into the streets, because there's not one person that comes into my service and there's not one wee guy that comes into the jail and goes, I can't wait to go and use that thistle.
No, and I think, like, I'm just looking at kind of some of the stuff when I was researching. So John Swinney, he stated that his kind of take on it was every death related to drug misuse is one too many, and drug deaths in Scotland remain far too high. The Thistle Centre is not a silver bullet, but it is another significant step forward and will complement other efforts to reduce harm and death. And then you had Marie Todd, who
Yeah,
said,
she's the new drug minister, isn't she?
So she was saying she emphasised the facility's life-saving impact.
Yeah,
Then
this is what they're sort of clinging on to. You know what I mean? That all of the news articles that I read, whether it be Neil Gray, the health minister, manager of the Thistle, it was focused around about preventing
Saving
these
death.
fatal overdoses by using the service. But just what you spoke about there, Natalie, about your experiences of guys not wanting to use the services, and some of the articles I read, it was much the same. You know, they didn't trust the authoritative figures. They weren't willing to travel. You know, once, as I think you spoke about it in the last podcast, you're grafted all day for a number of hours to get your money to use. A lot of the guys or girls, the last thing they want to do is then travel.
I'm not going to go away and travel like that. And it's actually laughable in the way that I've joked with people about it. Like, people have actually said, like, people have become annoyed. Like, if I'll say, like, just an off chance you meet somebody maybe that you know is using, and you'll say, have you ever used the Thistle? And they just go, yeah, I'm going to jump for Cumbernauld all the way through there. Do you know what I mean? So, and there is obviously, we've got, I know there's voices for Calton, and people are kind of like, and it's a shame because I think it is turning into a bit of a kind of, I don't know if you've seen The Wire, but I kind of like...
It's essentially what they're operating is like a Bunny Colvin type.
It's like a
drug market by the sounds of things, eh?
And I think it's also, we spoke about it the last time, and I think it's like, I mean, you're going to have all these young teams now that are fighting about who's going to be selling the gear down there. Do you know what I mean? Because you're not going to get caught with it. And I think, I don't know, it's a hard one to kind of even look at a positive. Do you know what I mean? I can't see any positives. And I think when we focus on quite a lot, where's the James Dockett uses the phrase all the time with relational wealth. Where's the relational wealth and going down to, like, because that's where I see people getting better. When they've got the relational wealth, you heal. Do you know what I mean? When you've got people running about your support network that you can rely on and you can go to. What support network? And by the way, I never knew this, and I might be wrong. I might get shot down for this, but there's a clinic in there that's giving out pharmaceutical grade diamorphine and to 23 patients apparently. Now that to me is mental. I didn't know that was, so you're actually getting a clinic beside it who's putting you on the best. Now, in a way, because of the stuff that's going about the heroin, it's all synthetic. there could be an argument that that's better, but why not just do that with everybody then? Why not see anybody that's got a heroin problem? Why not just give them that, like on the doctors, like allow them to? Do you know what I mean? I would rather see that if you were going to do that than just have a place. Do you know what I mean? Like,
would it be the cost? I don't know. I was just thinking.
So again, we need to determine what harm reduction looks like, and that's right, because we have a client actually. So I know this to be true. It's not in factual information. We had a client that his desire was to abstain. His desire was to come off methadone that he had been on for 30 plus years. His desire was to get well. And what was suggested was, we will get you a taxi 3 times a day down to get injected diamorphine.
A taxi?
A taxi.
So
down
a paid
and back.
taxi? So
a paid taxi down and back to keep somebody unwell. So determine for me what harm reduction is.
That's mental, isn't it? That is, because I know, no, it doesn't make sense.
So determine harm reduction, and the people, and this individual, had he been chaotic, what he was saying is, I would have utilised that and then used and tap it, because I would have had money to score as well. So
Most
that would have been a free done, a limo service down 3 times a day. You know, it's like, what is it we're actually doing to keep people well? And probably just to pick up on this, actually, because I think that it definitely deserves a wee bit of air, and just probably to honour the death of Peter Criken. Actually, I think it has to be spoken of. There's been a lot of people that's voiced their opinions on it on social media, which I don't believe it's their opinion to have, because what we need to remember is this guy had a wife and he's got 2 children that's been left. Now, we started campaigning with Peter Criken back in 2019, the You Keep Talking campaign, and that guy was on a mission, right? Really got it, really wanted to make Scotland better, and came up with a radical idea of the harm reduction van. Now, I fully support that, because one safe consumption room is not going to work in Scotland, right? It's just not going to work.
No.
We need to pilot a service that's going to work, right? And that is a mobile van that's going into the most deprived communities, that's got medical intervention, nurses, and people there that can support. Peter Criken went on a wee bit of a mission to do it himself without the medical intervention. So what he done was really radical and ambitious and bold and brave. And people used that as political leverage. The harm reduction services used it for whatever leverage they used it for. Politicians should have backed that and really looked at it and really looked at a cost-benefit analysis. Instead of looking at inputs, looking at what would be the outcome of having 500 harm reduction vans getting into Postal, Easterhouse, Cumbernauld, Dundee, Dunfermline, Aberdeen, like everywhere. So, you know, I think what we need to look at is, we have got so much research in Scotland. I mean, Professor David Best spoke about it at the Scottish Recovery Consortium conference. See the amount of research we've got that eradicates the harm reduction versus abstinence argument. Like, we need to pull it off the shelves and revisit what was wrote 20 years ago, Sean. I am getting to a point now where I'm just like, you regurgitate the same information, right?
Definitely.
Because it's like, you've got a wee counsellor down in the Carlton area that's championing change, but we need to watch that the activists are not fueling the wrong fight, because then we start to generate stigma against the addicts, which we don't want. We want to look at people and say that these people are really, really, really unwell. Like, you don't choose to inject drugs into your groin in a car park in Morrison's. Like, that's no, you know, that's so sad.
And I stand by it, Natalie. I stand by honestly, I definitely stand by probably high 90%. Well, Gabber Matty goes a step further in the realm of the Hungry Ghost and says he has never met a girl who wasn't sexually abused who didn't inject drugs. That he says, and that was working in like the worst area in Canada.
Certainly one of the positives of the mobile van would be a reduction in stigma as well, if the individuals are already within their local area. I think it would help there, do you know what I mean? Rather than travelling into a specific
Aye.
It was
centre
being
like the Thistle.
accessed, that's the thing. When Peter Cry can't, and it's devastating that he passed away, actually devastating for a lot of people, especially Catherine Liddell and his kids.
I didn't know him, Natalie, but I knew of him, like, I didn't know him.
He was a genuinely great guy that got lost in the argument about harm reduction versus abstinence, which was so sad, Sean, because people were accessing that van, but he just didn't have the medical intervention. Should, someone inject cocaine and it cracked lung, you need to have a doctor on site, you need medical resources. So what he was doing was against legislation. He was breaking the law, but his intentions were right. He knew that this is something that was working, the people were going to come, there was no stigma because he was an ex-addict. So, again, and that comes back to co-design and co-delivery. Scottish Government are fantastic at saying, but we brought lived experience round the table. We invited them up to have their view. There's a difference between having our view and having us co-produce and co-write what works. And if you'd have brought 1,000 injecting drug users, injecting drug users into a room in Scottish Government and said, we're going to create one safe consumption room, put it in the Carlton, blah, 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 everyone is would have said the same thing. That will absolutely categorically not work. It is a waste of money, a waste of resources, but here's what we can do.
Well,
and it's the money that's going into it as well, £2.3 million pound a year for the next 3 years. It's
and if you're is that direct? I mean, if you're taking taxes and stuff and all that kind of stuff, where is that money like coming from? Is that going? Because we know that the way they play it and they play these things is the 2.3 million directly for the Thistle, and then the other stuff can maybe fall under a different bracket of something else. Do you know what I mean? And this is how they do things sometimes. But see the big question I'm asking, like I know loads of people just the same as you. I know loads of people in the recovery community. Why are we so divided? And why? Do you know what I mean? Like people, it's getting heated to this extent. People are falling out. People are like, do you know what I mean? It's like people are like taking a stance on it that where it should be the big voices in recovery really need to come together. Do you know what I mean? And push something. And I'm not saying there's people because there's people trying all different things, but the big voices I think need to come together and like I don't know, like obviously harm reduction. I totally agree. Like far too much goes into harm reduction, especially in a sick community like Scotland. Like because it is at this moment very hopeless, sick. That we can see it on the streets. There's a huge amount of.
I mean, have you heard anybody, Natalie, advocating the Thistle Centre?
Only the professionals that work there.
Right,
I think I seen one.
What's his name? Casey.
I think I seen one interview with a boy that had access to service. But I've not actually heard anybody that's come in and said that they've utilised it.
As I say, when I was researching prior to coming on, I was looking for positive stories around about it, but there wasn't many listed online. And when you read the articles from like the 12th of May when they had their first meeting down at St Luke's and stuff.
Well, you're not going to, I mean, the bottom line is you're not going to read in the Daily Record, the Sun or the Evening Times a positive news story again about someone that had diabetes or cancer or any other illness saying, my doctor kept me really unwell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's the same thing. You're not going to get any addict or alcoholic saying, I went down there and I'm getting kept really unwell, but they saved my life and gave me a Loxone.
Begs the question though, doesn't it? Why do we do it with people with addictions? Do you know what I mean?
It's I think
because when we talk about treatment, it is methadone programs.
That's a gold standard. They call that the gold standard.
That's
if you go to your doctor and he talks to you about treatment for things such as cancer, you're thinking, okay, remission, chemotherapy, remission. We see in the communities and stuff, you mentioned there about the individual who'd been on the methadone script for 30 years and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
And obviously, we know the drug trends are changing.
You talk about being person-centred and trauma-informed and all that. Do you know what I mean?
The buzzwords are the two worst buzzwords of the world.
We hear it a lot in the community through North Lanarkshire as well. You've got somebody slapped on a methadone script for never seen a worker.
I know.
Or no seen them for a long time. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of these phrases thrown about. One thing I did take away from reading the newspaper articles about the Thistle is there's such a big disparity between what the people in the Carlton are saying and what your workers, your politicians and that are saying. They're miles apart.
So what is the people, was your research, what is the people in the Carlton saying?
An increase in drug use, drug-related paraphernalia, open air drug market. One of the articles mentioned how soiled clothing in the street. The last article I read was just last Sunday. A businessman, MOT centre in Carlton, he spent £18,000 his own money installing electronic gate, whatever it may be, security systems, still encountering people coming into his place of work. Obviously, he's seen them on the CCTV. The article mentions that he's caught one individual or seen one individual on the CCTV injecting against one of the cars. You know, and
but I think what we need to remember, this was happening prior to the consumption room.
And that's their argument.
The Carlton was always the place.
A lot of activists are really focusing on that as if this is a new thing. It's always been
the Carlton's
existing.
always been that place.
Like, well, that's one of the things they say, like Alan Casey, and that this isn't a new problem, and that's the sort of way of justifying where it is in a sense. I think
if you're going to go say with the Lord Advocate said about like how she would be jailing MD Roon about there, not. But we spoke about it the last time. I don't believe for a minute that anybody they're going down there, and any of the young team that think they're going to go down there and sell bags and all that will come to an end. Like, you will get, they'll crack down on that at some point. If they're doing that, if that's happening, the police will come and jail people, and they'll just sit and do an operation on it and watch everybody, do you know what I mean, and hammer them. But that said, it's still like in the way where, how do you, because I was reading something about the legislation is different, like so SNP are trying to blame Westminster or something, right, and saying it's them, they can't get the full, I didn't fully get what they were talking about.
Laws not devolved to the Scottish Government, but policy and how health is set out.
So they can't change.
So we can't change any legislation.
Like, say, your Misuse of Drugs Act and all that. That's not something that we could stray into, or the Scottish Government could stray into. But there's a pot of money there. How the money's used and stuff is.
So is that how Dorothy Bain came out and said, "I can't," like, basically dodged the comment then, because she really can't say it, and like she's no go.
She can't. She doesn't have authority to change a law.
Aye.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? She can. She can maybe say that this is what we would hope not to do.
Aye.
But the bottom line is the reality. The police officers are going to arrest who they're going to arrest.
I know.
Sean, that's the bottom line. Do you know what I mean? Like,
particularly when they've got people within
it's
the community.
Smoke mirrors. It's all smoke mirrors.
You know what I mean?
So see, we'll just take it in, right? So see, like the communities, obviously we're kind of North Lanarkshire, Natalie, Glasgow, two kind of focal points for the kind of drugs. Like, we'll take it and just see what he's hearing, because obviously I've this year has been like probably the worst year I've had for like people that I know dying. Like, I feel as if I'm just coming into work and or going into like and telling people every week that somebody's died. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just genuinely feel that it's getting to a point where and then I don't care what MD says. I know 2 or 3 drug deaths that have been put down as no drug deaths, that have been put down as heart attacks and put down as asphyxiation and put down as, I don't care what MD says about that. That's true. I know that's true. So if I know 3 or 4 people, and I could probably take a wild guess at a lot more. I'm not going to, but I could take a wild guess at a lot more people that I know of. I'm only talking about that's 3 that I definitely know of. I think the drug deaths would be outrageous a day. I genuinely think they'd be outrageous. I think you'd be into the tens of thousands a day. I genuinely believe that if you were to take in the actual numbers. I don't believe that they're coming out and saying, "Oh, well, we've got a reduction in that." It's impossible, because you're watching it happen. It's no.
COVID was a beautiful example of massaging numbers, because what happened was typically people that died with drug-related, alcohol-related deaths that maybe had COVID were put down as COVID deaths.
It makes you think,
so then the next statistic was, oh my God, there's a reduction in the drug death numbers, when in actual fact, see, when you scrape it back, like you say, Sean, when you're working and from a scheme and you're hearing there's wee Johnny died, there's Joe died, there's his mum died, there's his auntie died, there's his brother died, you're hearing every single day. So you know for a fact it's not COPD that's killed him. It's not a heart attack because he wasn't well because he was using. So the numbers are absolutely, I don't believe them to be factual. I also believe them to be massaged to fit the consensus of whatever the Scottish Government want to tell us. I don't believe there's ever a minister in post long enough to actually get to grip with what's happening. And that goes across the board for education. You know, we're massively failing the kids. Look at what's happening with children now. Increase in taking drugs, running about with knives, the gang prevalence again.
Again, I'm getting shot down for say there's no gangs coming, and I'm saying, look, I'm not trying to say I'm an expert, right? I'm saying, but I've got lived experience. I was in prison for a long time. I know, you can watch the streets, and I can guarantee that there's more wee guys and that hanging about shops again, hanging about. I can see them with carryouts. The way they look, just the whole thing, like I can see it in social media sometimes, we guys posting photos with big knives and all. It's all happening again, and they're telling people like, no, it's no, and I'm getting told like it's no, and I'm like, so where is it? I don't know. I don't. For what I'm seeing, and then with what the stats are saying, to me, the whole thing, we're losing control of the whole thing here. We
want to polish a truth. You know, there's a couple of young boys that have died recently, and we want to polish the stories behind it. Yep. Do you know what I mean? And Definitely. It's not, there is a rise in youth violence. There's no ifs or buts about it. And I know that to be true, and I'll speak it to be factual because I sit in the rooms with the Violence Reduction Unit in Police Scotland. So I'm hearing about it. There is absolutely an increase in the young team using drugs. And what they're thinking is that they're smoking these vapes, and they're just thinking that it's a bit of cannabis, and it's not, it's spice. They're laced with spice, so it's not even THC. So they're going home to their parents erratic, angry, aggressive. Again, they're taking that aggression out to the streets as well. So you've got a bunch of young team running about just angry and aggressive on drugs that we don't even know the impacts or how to manage them. So how's the young team expected? So see when people go, oh, that's not happening, this is not. I'm like, I work in Springburn and watch the young team roll about all the time. So don't talk absolute nonsense, because I see it from my window. I physically watch them fighting. My wee boy's got some pals that he's went to school with, primary one right up, and now he'll be like that to me, Mum, they're like a cancer, I can't be near them because they're talking about blades and this and that, and they're 15, 16. So there is, and again, social media will drive that. So you've got, your young teams are very, very prevalent. Again, gang violence is very, very prevalent, and what comes with that is who's got the biggest balls, and by that is who's carrying a blade. You know what yourself, Sean? Whoever's got the biggest balls is the one that's carrying a blade, and if you're carrying a blade, you're going to do something with that.
Yeah, you're expected.
You really are. You're expected to do something with it. The peer pressure, the adrenaline, and all that stuff, and that's why we're losing all these wee boys, because it's very, very sad actually. But if we don't stop polishing the truth and telling the public the absolute truth, then we're going to keep having fatalities with drugs. We're going to have a young team that just are not supported or guided in the right direction, because we're polishing everything that we want the public to see.
I think something you spoke about there, teenagers have misused alcohol or used alcohol and drugs since the dawn of time, but I think it's the nature of the drugs that are getting used now with teenagers that's the most alarming, Ketamine. There used to be a wee bit,
and the gases.
You've a carry out with your school money, a bit of dope. Now, what we see, if I've got somebody like 20-year-old coming into the service that I work in, they're sniffing cocaine at 13, 14.
I know.
You got the rise of the vapes with the spice.
Some of the guys taking crack
ketamine
and stuff.
Well, there's quite a lot of young students taking cocodamol. And that's something. So see, when I look back on my medical records, my GP was my first drug dealer. So at the age of 14, I was put on an adult antipsychotic. So my GP was really my first prescribing drug dealer. you've got kids at university taking Cocodamol, no realising that this is something that gives them a wee dun, a wee charge, that, you know, it's going to...
Can lead to other things.
That will potentially lead to other things.
Yep.
So, you know, but where is the information about the impacts of such things like Cocodamol?
Even adults are naive to that, aren't they? In our service, you'll hear them saying things like, "Oh, I didn't realise Cocodamol."
Didn't know it was an opiate and all that.
And a lot of the time it actually tends to be women.
Some people don't. When I spoke to my two boys about it, because I try and advise them, I've let them drink and try to do the, you know, this is how you manage your alcohol and drink responsibly. But when I spoke to them, my youngest Kobe went, "What, heroin's in Cocodamol tablets that you get for a pharmacy?" And I went, "Yeah, it's an opiate, kiddo. It's basically your gateway." And he was like, "Why do they sell them then?"
I know.
Because it's
15 mils
it's
it's up to now you can get. Yeah. And it's not, see, the thing is like, did you ever, I don't know if you've ever watched the documentary about the place called Huntington. It was in America, and it was the Oxycontin thing. It was where it was where they put Oxycontin in it.
Yep.
And it was the Waynes started stealing the Mandaz meds and stuff, like, and that's where, so instead of getting carry-outs and that, they were stealing their Mandaz oxys and that, do you know what I mean? And it caused absolute mayhem, like, particularly
in a country like America, where it is very much...
Oh, it was rapid, Andy. I had to see the downfall, see, like, it was like an absolute annihilation of a wee town, like, within 10 years, it was like, honestly, I can't even remember the stats, I'll try and look them up. It was... mental how many people were actually on opiates in this town. Like, it was like most of the town like was on it. I can't remember the stats, but it was like the vast majority of people were taking it.
You talk about like the rise in gangs and stuff as well. The communities have had the heart ripped out them, haven't they? There's absolutely nothing for Waynes to do. So they're going to gravitate to...
And this is, I think, one of the first podcasts that I came on with, Sean, that I spoke about, like... you know, the OGs a crime, and I'm not advocating for criminals, not by any matter of means at all, but, you know, when I was younger and I grew up, there was honour amongst thieves, right? And I know that sounds like so shady, but there was morals against the underworld, there was values, there was... You know, you had your OGs schooling the younger guys to say, you know, this is what you do, this is what you don't do. There's a level of respect to women, this is what you do with children.
Played to a code.
You know, but we took them off the game and knew what you have is just anybody schooling anybody. And that's a recipe for disaster right there.
Yep.
You know, so but again, I'm not supporting criminals or anything like that, but I think what we need to look at is we need to look at the people that have ex-criminals that have succeeded, and we need to look at how they've succeeded, and they're the ones that need to be educating. So like for me, Sean going into all the prisons, so we take some of the ex-lifers that we've worked with into the jails, and you know, people in prison will listen to me because I give them a safe space and I give them... They can trust me after time, and I'm taking in valuable resources, right? But if you take in Sean or Rab, they're going to talk about their experience. They'll generate so much more hope than I could ever desire to take in, do you know what I mean? Because that's living proof of someone that a system did not break. You know, the Sean Dunny's degree while he was in the jail, and we need to remember that the miscarriage of justice with Sean as well. Do you know what I mean? So the bottom line is he could have stayed in jail, used drugs, felt sorry for himself because he was in there for a crime that he didn't commit, like, you know, but he didn't. He chose to stand up against the system, although it done him wrong, and say that I'm going to get a degree, I'm going to honour myself and my family regardless of what's been put on me. Like, see him going in to carry that message, not being anti-authority, that's powerful. That's what we need. We need your Seans, we need your Rab Scotts, your Big Chiefs, all your guys that have succeeded in their life since they've got out. That's the power right there, and that eradicates the imbalance, because, like I say, the troops in the jail listen to me because I give them safety. They know that my job is never ever to harm them. But I think that there's more of a place for you guys to be in there delivering, just like...
They're certainly underutilised, aren't they, the people...
Well, for me, right, And again, this comes back to co-design, co-delivery and the power imbalance that we have. See, if we want a justice system that's going to work, we need to look at people that have been in the justice system, right?
100%.
Not just to sit and write on a bit of paper or this was Sean's experience or such and such's experience and this is what worked. We need to be paying Sean, he set up at Scottish Government with the civil servants, with the ministers, to co-design a justice system that works for the people so that we can actually say, see, when you leave the Scottish Prison Service, we have transformed your life and unlocked potential. No, it's the same with the drug deaths.
Not according to your book.
It's the same with the drug deaths. It's the same with drugs and alcohol. You need to co-design and co-deliver it with people that have got long-term recovery behind them.
Yep.
They say, this is what works, this is what doesn't. But it's a tokenistic gesture, and I promise you, right, let this be on camera, I promise you, if we don't do that, in the next 10 years, we will have this same conversation.
Yeah, going round in circles.
If we don't have co-production and co-delivery and stop using it as a tokenistic gesture, we need to be sitting on the same table, on the same salary, seen as equality, not just a thanks very much for that, there's a wee £50 gift card and a wee pat in the back, then nothing's going to change. We've watched it for years. Everything on Netflix is about big pharma. How many things can you go into on Netflix and it's about big pharma companies?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Again, that's about a 90% investment in a medical model that says that that's designed to reduce harm. When what we are seeing is prisons full of people that are unwell, communities full of people that are unwell, and parents, see the amount of parents that message me, like, so worried because they're like, I watched your video, I don't know what to do, they're using this, like, and we're saying, like, you know, they're saying, like, I've got naloxone, but what's there for them to get well?
Aye, I mean, naloxone's great, aye.
I know.
No, it's absolutely got its place, like a lot of things, but what's coming after it that's the problem.
Intravenous drug users, now there's hundreds of research again around this, typically tend to use alone. So you'll use in isolation due to the stigma attached to it.
That was
So if you're an intravenous drug user using alone, then if you're overdosing, you're not going to commit an overdose and go, oh, wait a minute, hold on, I need to put a wee bit of naloxone in myself. There on Thursday, I was just about to leave work and a wee guy had a drug-induced overdose. Now, had that been out in the street in a corner, who would have administered anything? Would he still be alive? Probably not. We were very fortunate to have Narcan because we knew that it was probably a synthetic. So, do you know what I mean? It's just like, and I think a lot of people that are in long-term recovery, I think as you said, Sean, it's not that they're fighting against each other anymore. I think it's just the levels of frustration because they've all been championing change for 10, 15 years. I mean, let's go back, right? So when I left school, I done an HND in Communication and Media. And I done an interview down at the Carlton Athletics with Davy Bryce Senior and a guy, Davy Main, right? And back then, that was in 1997, and it was an argument about methadone back then. Now we're 2025 and we're still having the same argument and absolutely nothing has changed. We've just got worse and we're now calling it the gold standard of treatment, how to get people well.
I think what Eddie Gorman said, I remember Eddie Gorman was on the podcast and he was talking about, and like Dostoevsky says it, Dostoevsky says like you should look at a society and base it on how well the prison system's doing. How well the prison system doing shows you how, and I'll go back to the prison system's a riot now, right? Society's a riot. There's no money going into the prison system. The cost of living's going up. So I'll go back to it. It's poverty. It's all poverty driven. It's when cost of living goes up, the hopelessness goes up. And see, like when we're talking about like big pharma, we're talking about drugs. Drugs are a symptom. Drugs are a symptom of that's all they are. They're like the root cause of, just say your root cause of is trauma, right? Like PTSD for child abuse or whatever, right? If you're not speaking about that, if you're not going to talk about that, if you're not going to open up about that, you, unfortunately, I've got a massively, the chances of you coming off drugs is so small. Now, most of the places that people go to are told not to talk about trauma, like go into it in detail, don't talk about it, generalise it. No, there is not one place that it frustrates me, because I get to the stage where I'm like, surely there must be a trauma centre like in the middle of Glasgow where you can send people to go and get help, because we're going to just keep going round and round and round here. Like, and I genuinely mean that. I see the same people coming in doing really well, and like you see the same people in the streets doing really well, and then they relapse, right? And you're like, right, what do you, and I try my hardest, because what you're doing is fixing a symptom of the trauma. That's all you're doing. The drug is actually, like, there's trauma ends up in, you know yourself, complex trauma. You just build trauma upon trauma upon trauma, and then before you know, you don't know where it starts, right, where it goes. See, the drug is a solution to that, right? So you've got to remember, the big pharma are offering you a solution. They're offering you, here is what helps. Take this and it'll kill your pain.
Term.
Totally. Gabor Mate says it like it's obviously any addiction is any behaviour that causes you harm, but in the short term will give you relief, but in the long term causes you harm. Any behaviour. So that can be eating, it can be porn, it can be shopping, it can be anything, gambling. So it's a behavioural thing.
How many of the trauma centres do you think would be required across Scotland though? You know, you could, if we say that there's one thistle's not going to make a difference.
But trauma's that to me is the underlying thing. It's the thing that underpins nearly every single.
I think bereavement's a big thing
definitely
as well. Yeah,
and I think bereavement can turn into trauma. I think that like is a kind of cause. But you look at if you're talking to somebody, you're talking to a wee guy, and he opens up to you and says, "Look, I was sexually abused when I was away, and I can't get over it." Now that, unfortunately, leads that person into intrusive thoughts and all these things. There's so many, like it becomes a very, very hard thing to deal with. Now, if you're in a prison setting, or you've been abused in care, where like the people who were supposed to be your caregivers, the safe, you've never felt safe. How you expected to go into a prison and get better?
Yep,
how you expected, do you know what I mean? It's insane.
Trust,
You're never going to trust that guy in the suit.
No.
You're never going to trust him. What you're going to only trust somebody that you've maybe been through the same thing as you, can get what you're talking about. Because you would never speak to a wee kid. If a wee kid came up and told you, "Listen, I've just been abused," you would be like really outraged, and you would be like, where is this person that done this to you? Like, where? But see, an adult tells you that, you kind of, I know you go, all right, you need to get to the root cause. Do you know what I mean? And you're like,
it is finding the support, and particularly within a time frame that's going to really help. Do you know what I mean? If you refer on and there's maybe 12 months, 18 months.
That doesn't, for me, that doesn't. So that's why we're in Berlin 5 days a week now, because what we realised is if someone comes into the recovery cafe, and we always say to the guys, this is not a confession box, so please don't say anything that, you know, could leave you at harm or at risk. Yep. Pull a staff member aside, we'll have a one-to-one with you. And then what we realised is there's a huge population in there that have came through the system their whole entire life that have been sexually abused, that have been really, really harmed. So when they were pulling us aside for a one-to-one, we would get that 20-minute conversation with them. They're going back to their cell, no seeing us for another 7 days. That's not effective or conducive for them to sit with that. So we had to go, we went to the Spark, to Alec Cochrane actually, and I had said to him, like, what can I do to offer a wraparound support? It's horrendous for me to think that. So me, as someone that's got PTSD, like, loads of things get me hyper-vigilant. Like, if a police car goes behind me, right away I go into fight or flight. Now, I know I've done nothing wrong and I've got nothing in my car, but I go right into that fear mode. When I go into the prison and I smell the food, it's something that heightens my response system. Like, I'm just getting to a point now where I can no longer deal with the systems in place. I'm starting, like, do you know, some people say to me, like, Sean,
a lot of the boys, you give them so much hope and all that, right? And you give them, and I don't feel that way, Natalie. I genuinely don't. I don't feel like because I've got major demons. Like I've genuinely got, and I've worked through being in prison for something I've never done. I've still not worked that out. I've still not been able to work that out, right? I've accepted a lot, and I get better, and I probably get better every day. But I'm lucky with the support network I've got. But I'm definitely no. So a lot of people are kind of trying to like lean on, not in a bad, but they try and like. And I'm nowhere near fixed, and I get triggered a lot. I can get triggered by people telling me things.
It's unjust. I think so. The importance of what I was going to say about the Alec Cochrane thing was that he then brought in Spark Counselling so that we could wrap around the boys and give them a counselling support service. So I think for you, Sean, like, and I've never been at my whole family, my whole life received injustice just because who my family were and what my mum and dad chose to do is their career choice. But as a kid, because I've grew up with so many injustices, that I have that sense of that I can quite easily go into anti-authority because I see things that I despise, that I know that are wrong. But then when I try to put into context how you're feeling, like, you know, it's so if we think about like somebody that's went to jail because they've committed the crime, most people can take accountability and go, all right, I'm here because I done that and whatever. And they'll take that accountability for it. They might not agree with it, they might not want to be in jail, but, you know, they done that, so they'll take that level of accountability. So for you, I think when I try and comprehend how you're thinking, me as someone that like hates unjust, I don't think that if I was you, Sean, that I would ever be able to fully repair for that because it's injustice, right? So me personally just not liking that injustice, I hate it and I become triggered by
exactly
it.
what you mean.
But then you as someone that lost so much of their childhood, their teenage years, you lost so much of your life because of an injustice, do you know what I mean? So then how does society repay you for that and expect you not to feel that for the rest of your life? Do you know what I mean? And be
but I
so triggered by it.
Gaslit still, and I don't mind it. Like I'm past it, Natalie, but I don't like take your media, your big media. They won't talk to me because I won't admit to something I've never done. Like they won't, do you know what I'm talking about? Which is, again, it's a whole different topic, but they won't talk to me. They won't put me on platforms or whatever, which is fine. I'm like happy.
Well, maybe again that should be another topic. Maybe we should look at why is the press not want to. The bottom line is, right, if the court system has said that you served your prison sentence and that is what rehabilitation means, then how can the media turn around and say it's not?
I know.
Do you know, like, what do they determine as prison reform? So how do the media get to diagnose who can and who can't be on a story? So maybe there's a space to have that conversation with the media. Why do you get to look at the stuff with kneecap?
I know.
Look at the stuff with, you know, all the publicity around a wee guy flying a Palestinian flag.
I know.
Now we're watching human genocide and people die. And we think that's okay, but because one wee guy waves a Palestinian flag, we want to be like, oh my God, look at him, he's saying we should do this. You know, the media, maybe we should get the media
I think
on.
it works on both sides, because I said this with Thomas, like I'm a supporter of Palestine, and I think that they've done with kneecaps outrageous. But also with Tommy Robinson, I genuinely think they've done it at him, and I don't align with him at all. But what they done to him was outrageous, like putting him in prison, putting him in solitary. I know what solitary confinement does to people. I've seen it, like no letting him see his family and all that. That I mean, like it's no right.
It's human
do you know
torture.
what I mean? It is.
It's human torture
for
Sean.
nothing. Well, isn't it? I mean, we had Tommy Ross on, and Tommy Ross explained why, and he was in prison for. But what I'm talking about, we know that it was because of who he was. Yeah. That's what the day, and this is no fair. It's like, and it's triggering. It's injustice. But I think where this is probably relative to the conversation is, see 95% of your prison population, 95% of your addiction population, they are the same. They despise injustice. So see, when you're going into a service, you see it sometimes with somebody, they'll come into a service and they'll say, I'm getting passed a pillar to post, and you're like, I know, but we're not meaning that. But yeah, and it's,
they feel
do you know what I mean?
At times, when they've been passed from one service to the next, they can't support you, and often we'll be like the last line, won't we?
Aye.
You know what I mean? They've been X, Y, they've came to our place of work.
Aye.
We just become so robotic. My experience of being pastoring services for being a kid was I became robotic to my story. I disassociated with the pain of my story because I had told it so many times that it just becomes robotic. I was young and this is what happened to me. And So you become so desensitized to actually, that's shocking that happened to you. You know, it just becomes, that's your story. You've told it 550 times. And it actually takes for a worker to say, oh my, you know, when some wee guys come in and speak to us and we say, oh my God, son, I'm so sorry, that shouldn't have happened to you. They look at you as if, but what are you apologising for?
Nobody
else
because
nobody's ever done it. Nobody's ever said, I'm so sorry, how can we help you?
Natalie, I was in jail for 15 years and I'm maybe once or twice a prison officer would come in and say, you all right? See, like when you're going through, I was well liked, you know that. I was well liked in the prison system, and I got on well. I certainly wasn't a hard man or anything like that, none of that kind of stuff. But I was well liked, and I had a good name, and I could go to any prison, and I would always have pals and stuff like that. But you were always putting a face on, right? You were always. I was never all right. Never once was all right in the prison. But you can't even say that you're not all right, because then they go,
the environment,
like a risk assessment. Oh, he's nowhere. Do you know what I mean? He's. How do we take that he's no feeling good? Like, so you become fear of, and that you often see that with guys that come into the service because they've been through that thing where trying to get them to tell the truth. Like, and I'm like, mate, I'm not going to say it, and do you know what I mean? And they're like, but they see you as authority because you weren't, and even if. It's one of the reasons I don't go up to the prisons a lot is because I go like, I'm going in there and I don't believe that anything that's happening in here is really dangerous. And I mean, I love your work, Natalie, you know that. And the people that you have helped, and as you say, I don't know how, you just said there's like a 300 people waiting list or something, right, which is mental. So but even when you, upon release, right, you've got SISCO, which is very, very lucky. People are very lucky to have that service, right? But there isn't a SISCO everywhere. So that you're sending me guys out that maybe think, oh, I've got support in the jail, and then you bang them back out into the street, and then they've got nothing again. Do you know what I mean? And then it's back to that whole injustice thing. Where am I getting help for? Oh, and then it's fuck it. Like,
I mean, how many times have you seen an individual present at our service right out of prison?
When we look at even prison to rehab, I mean, we had a really, really good, and here's again where we create a policy that reads really beautifully, but we've not done enough research to look at key performance indicators being successful. So we go, right, okay, there's some money, let's get some people and let's put them for prison to rehab. Brilliant, fantastic idea. Like,
sounds good.
We should have recovery wings in all the jails because, you know, there's people in jail that genuinely do want to get well. There's just no an opportunity because it's the most, for anybody that's been in prison, they'll know it's the most stressful, hostile environment in the world. And the drugs they're using are painkillers. They're trying to kill pain.
And anxiety meds. Like, it's no, you don't, like, there's
nobody's running about full of Charlie and MDMA having a party in the jail.
Emotional pain rather than
That's
physical.
the bottom line. Everybody is trying to suppress their emotional well-beings in the jail.
And you've got the there's the masculinity thing, which is obviously going to be in a prison, but if you were to turn around and go like that to somebody, if I just walked out my Peter and I was like that to a few of the boys, my trauma is really killing me today. They'd be like, oh, what? Fucking, like, you would get slaughtered. Like, so it's very hard to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can literally say, and I know guys, and listen to, I mean this, and the amount of people that have reached out to me, and I'm talking about people who were maybe very well known prisoners in the system and stuff like that, people who did and have reached out to like social sessions and stuff to say, that's the way I felt, by the way. Is unbelievable. Like, I'm not going to sit and name names up, but I don't believe that there's anybody like in the prison system, unless you're a mad psychopath, sociopath, which there's a very few of, who are actually enjoying their life. Like, and it's they've got to kid on that they are, and even to get out, they've got to kid on that they're doing all right. I'm fine, and that. And then the boys will go out and and take their own life. I don't know many times I've heard that.
And my experience, Sean, is like, see all the boys, and it doesn't matter how hard they are out in the streets and what name they've got attached to them. See, when you build a relationship with these boys in the jail and you get them in a room, just one-to-one, like, they're real human beings.
Of course, totally.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, what's sad for me is, right, a lot of the young team are groomed into these lifestyles as well. Do you know what I mean? And it's the bravado of, he's got a cracking trachea. Like, you've got wee guys in poverty and disadvantage that their parents can't afford. Their mum and dads are addicts, so the last thing they're about to buy their wains is a pair of Yeezys. So they then look at these guys, they're running about nowadays, and do you know what I mean? So they're getting groomed into these lifestyle choices, and then, you know, when you strip it back and you speak to all these wee guys, like, they're devastated at their lifestyle choices. They know they've now got children, and, you know, they want to be better role models for their kids, but, you know, they've already picked a lifestyle choice, so, and it's hard to get out of that. But see, in the jail now, and it's probably, it needs to be spoke about, is see the shift in drug trends and the cognitive...
The impact that it's having.
You're talking about, like, because I can only speak for my experience with seeing people trying to, like, have a conversation with somebody on Spice. Like, see, I can go back to shots in 2005 and that, right? And people were heavily smoking heroin, like, loads of it. There was tons of it in the hall, like you couldn't go buy 3 Peters and there wasn't somebody before you were smoking it. But you could still have a conversation. You could go in and you could genuinely just go in and sit in that gaff, and, like, even though I never took it, you could sit in the gaff with the guys and you could have a conversation. People would just be smoking it, but you would see with Spice, it's genuinely quite frightening, like, in the way that when you're in the cell, like, people, like, go into crazy psychosis things and, like, start staring at you, and you're like, is he gonna fucking try and
is that what you're seeing?
So from 9 years ago to now, people that I've worked with 9 years ago, when I see them now, completely different people.
They're not coming back, but now, are they? Like, it's not as if they're, like...
I don't think some of these people are cognitively going to come back. Like you said, like, I mean, there's guys that I'll sit and have a conversation with, and I'm like, are they actually even taking in what I'm saying, or are they just staring right through me?
It's a weird stare. I know exactly what you're talking about, that stare.
And they're not under the influence, you know, they're clean, but it's just that way that they're just sitting.
I know.
And I'm like, is he even listening to me? But it's the cognitive impairment, because, again, we don't have enough research to say, right, what is the damage that this is actually doing to the receptors in people's brain? Like, what is happening to people when they're using this?
And is that coming through Spice predominantly?
Spice, because it's your bramazolam, your atazolam, your sister, because it's all your synthetics. We don't have coke and smack. That's the bottom line. We don't.
The stories, Andy, I heard a boy, obviously I never name names on this podcast, but there was a boy who got a bit of atazolam in, and apparently he'd never took it before, and I think he was putting it in the bags to sell, and he'd washed his hands in that, but obviously there was that. They say, so think about how minute that is if you can't see it, and apparently he's like licked his fingers, like, or whatever, he'd done something, and he was out his nut, like out his tree, and like caused a rammy, and like, and this is how, and that stuff ended up, like, I don't know if we were in, remember the bad batch, the first time Atislam came into the jail, and there was like 12 overdoses or something, and on the one weekend, right, it was mental, and like, I think 2 people died. Was it 1 or 2? I don't know. I know, like, a wee pal of mine died in the ambulance and get brought back, like, twice get brought back, and I think there was a few of them get brought back just only because there was nurses on thingy. And this is all just like, when I was in jail, see, in 2005, a drug death was a big, like, somebody, you didn't hear it.
Aye, uncommon.
You didn't hear it, like, a drug death.
The commonality would have been suicide, not drug death.
Aye, and now you get, I get messages off, like, people, mothers and stuff like that, like, can you highlight my story, Sean? And I'm like, aye, but I don't, like, my partner died in prison with drugs, and I'm like, I can't even. I'm only out of jail. I mean, last time I was in jail was 2020, and I can't see. I can't imagine these deaths that I'm hearing about because it's.
And is the prison drug-related deaths incorporated into the overall figure, like in August, or are they done separately?
Andy, they've been. I mean, some of the stories.
That's a law towards its own, and that's
Right.
an area that I'm not even going to get into actually, because I'll probably shit in the doorstep that I work on. But that's a whole different story.
I know a story.
And I guess
I'll say one. I'll say one story.
my dad died in the jail,
No.
right? And it took my mum a long time for a fatal accident inquiry. Then my uncle Danny died in the jail, and again fatal accident inquiry. Now we know that he was taking a parcel in and there was drugs busting. We know that are factual, but if they wrote that down in a fatal accident inquiry,
Nowhere to be seen.
I know he had a case where it was a prison officer told me that he heard the security team saying going to pronounce him dead outside. Like, so it doesn't go down as a drug death in the jail. Now, I don't know how much truth in that, but I do believe that the prison officer isn't a person that was a liar. And as I say, I'm not going to do them the same as Natalie because there's no factual basis behind it, so I can't really. But it would blow your mind, some of the things you hear. It's actually verging on madness.
I think
the stuff that you could put like.
But can I just highlight, though, I do want to highlight one thing, that it's quite catastrophic for the officers that work in there.
Yeah.
You know, because
what is the rate of them going after now? Like I've seen, I feel it's crazy.
It's very high.
Trauma,
the amount of young officers that we're seeing coming through the prison establishment.
It's a shame.
Now,
I get messages off a lot of staff as
which
well.
Is sad, right? Because I love all the
well.
old officers, right?
Aye.
So for me, the older officers in the prison service, Sean, and you'll know this as being an ex-con, you know what you get with them.
Aye.
See, if it's an aye, it's an aye. And if it's a no, it's a no. There's no middle ground.
grey area.
The younger officers are, you know, on a good day, it's a yeah, you can get a phone call. On a bad day, it's a no, you know. So there's kind of no boundaries with them. So there's a lack of consistency, I think, with the officers.
I know a
now.
fella, boy I used to work with, he's moved from Pullman into Berlin fairly recently, over the past maybe 3-4 months. He told me he moved because he's travelling. Airdrie to Pullman, he's moved into, but he's in Berlin now. Aye.
I mean, I love Berlin and I love Low Moss, and the reason that I love them is because they have governors that are very radical thinkers. Now, I don't align with everything that they agree with, right? Because I don't align with a broken system, and I'll never agree with something that I genuinely will put thought into, and when I think about it and think about my own research in my head, I'll be like, no, that doesn't work. But what I love about Low Moss and Berlin, and there's other prisons, Grampian's getting a wee bit the same, as they're becoming very, very radical in their thinking, right? But if you're saying that, I know this is going into a wee bit of the prison stuff, but if it's trauma-informed buzzword, right? We're miles away from being trauma-informed now. So
Sarah Armstrong sorry to butt in that, but Sarah Armstrong made a good point on saying, how can you be trauma-informed prison when the prison is causing the trauma?
So how can we be trauma-informed when we're punishing people?
Aye.
Right?
Aye.
So you look at mandatory, so the Talk to Me is just being evaluated now, right? So let's look at guys that are on mandatory observation or suicide, right? These guys are on mandatory observation because they're unwell. They're in suicide watch because they're unwell. So that's every 15 minutes you're getting checked upon. Now, imagine being emotionally and mentally so unstable that you want to end your life, right? Like, so broken. You're in that cell with nothing but catastrophic thinking, and you're maybe just want to get your head down and get a wee break. And every 15 minutes that wee window's opening. And if you're not moving, their job is to reduce harm and make sure is to come in and wake you up. So their job is to wake you up every single 15 minutes. So how can you say that that's trauma-informed? We're now getting to a place where we've had this information. If you're saying you're trauma-informed, where is your trauma response? Mm-hmm. So what is it you're responding to with the information? So if we're saying as a prison and as a society that we're trauma-informed, why is the court still sending people unwell to prison?
what's your definition of trauma? That's what I ask people. What's your definition of trauma? Because genuinely, some people think that, I was traumatized because I missed the bus. You know, like that's people think. To me, trauma is deep. It's deep. It's a root cause of nearly all the crime, all the kind of addiction. It's your root cause, right? So it's such a big word to me, trauma, right? Trauma to me is something that should never be underplayed.
Aye.
I think we're pushing it way past all this and pushing it to a front base where you're going, we're trauma informed. And you go, lad, what trauma informed and what?
Aye, in what way?
Well, what we do is we'll set the paint's a nice colour and like, what the fuck? How's that going to, like, it doesn't matter. Like, oh no, this paint will make them speak like more, and you're like, it really angers me.
Their internal pain. That's the bottom line. So the trauma for me is my internal pain.
Definitely.
Right, so I might be
wounds,
12 years sober, but the bottom line is I wake up every day and I'm hyper vigilant. I've probably had a nightmare the night before. I still wet the bed because that's never going to go away. A guy came into our service and someone told him in the fellowship, come off your medication, mate. PTSD is like a common cold. It comes and goes. And when he came in and told me, I was like, are you kidding me on? Please don't take that guidance on board. Please go and speak to your GP and go back on your medication. It's not like a common cold. No. It doesn't come and go. No. It's there for life. You're going to be hyper vigilant. You're going to be living with it, but it's how you do live with it. You've got it. I've got it.
Night terrors. See, people. I don't know if people really have had a night terror.
Yeah.
Like, people think they've had a night terror, but
yeah, I've heard you talking about it in work.
I'm very lucky. I've not had them for a while, right? But like, I don't, for whatever reason, I've not been. But on saying that, Fiona will say, she'll wake me up sometimes. She'll say, "All right," and obviously I'm like soaking, like feet to toe in sweat, but I can't remember it. So, which is a good thing, obviously. But Fiona says I still get them. So, I obviously, they from time to time still get them, but I don't get the vivid ones that are like genuinely, I'm like, I need to go up and go to work or go and look after my family and all that after that. Like, it genuinely, like, crippling, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Gives you crippling anxiety, and then people go like to me, you're dead strong. I get that quite a lot. You're dead strong, sure. I don't feel that, and you'll be the same. That you don't feel it because you know inside you're like, I'm damaged inside here. Like, I've got a lot going on here, and I'm know that people see it. And when people say it, I can see it. When people like, I go, I know that I've done well to accept things, and I'm trying to change stuff, and I'm trying to give a voice to prisoners, and I'm trying to give. So I can see the strength in that. Do you know what I mean? I've done well. I've got a wee family that I look after. I've do you know what I mean? So I'm doing well on loads of fronts. But I've got massive demons, man. Like, and it's as if people sometimes go, "He's doing all right, so he's fine now."
Because you can't see the inside
when
stuff.
I'm not,
Sean, you can't see
the.
My kids are. My kids are fantastic with my PTSD. Actually, they're very, very aware of it. I'm very blessed that my oldest son's studying psychology because he's had such an awareness of it. But I mean, my kids I'll sometimes wake up at a nightmare and I'm standing in the hall and my boys get his arms around me going, "It's okay, mum, it's okay, mum, it's okay, mum." Mm-hmm. So a lot of my nightmares I'll go into, I'm trying to cut my dad down because he's hanging himself, or things about Braden's dad that, like when I was away in Spain, my best friend actually messaged my sister to say, "Oh my God, I didn't realise her nightmares were still as bad because I was screaming and shouting during the night." And she was just like, "How can you still live with that?" And I'm like,
yep.
You just get used to, you get into a process where you wake up in the morning and you are hyper-vigilant. Like you, Sean, a lot of times I'll wake up and thankfully, I know I've had one because I'm saturated in sweat or I've wet the bed, but I don't always remember what they are. But you've still got that anxiety, that fear, that hypervigilance inside because you've went into that unstored memory bank where things have come out that you don't want to come out. And then I need to manage my day. I need to get my kids up, get one to university, get one to school. I then need to go into my job. And people look at me and go like, "Oh, you've got it together." And I'm like, have you seen inside my head? Have you seen my anxiety or my heart or how I feel as if my heart is like a Tom and Jerry wheel. Like, you don't live inside my socks, so don't think that you know how my feet feel. Do you know what I mean? Like you, a wee guy comes in all the times and he'll go, "You're just like the protector of all souls, Natalie. You're like the wounded healer." Because I go into my work, by the way, and although I've got the job title chief exec, see, in the grand scale of it, that means fuck all to me. That's just a title. I'm there because I'm there to get people well. But I'll go into my work some days and go, "Troops, I had a nightmare last night. I'm fucked. I've got absolutely nothing to give. So I'm going to just shut my door and do my admin." I have got no problem in eradicating any type of pride or ego and saying that I'm still trying to get well every single day. And I don't claim to be this fucking floating Gandhi that's proper well. Like, I am so hyper vigilant with a system that it's designed to make Scotland good, but Scotland's system ultimately broke me as a child, broke me as a teenager, and as an adult, I mean, just get rejected for redress there. So again, there's a system put in place to say that if you were harmed and this happened to you, redress is a scheme that's going to, you know, make it better. Now, I wasn't going for redress for the financial. I didn't want the money side of it. I wanted that letter to say, "We failed you as a kid," because I would have invested the money into SISCO. And then I get rejected. I get a letter saying, "Oh, you don't actually meet the criteria." So there's a system that's still designed to fail people. So as a 45-year-old adult, I'm still getting failed by the same system that we say is going to help you and make you better.
So how, see, like, obviously, how much, like, even be a sale, Andy, how much do you, we speak and we'll get a laugh and what and stuff, right? And obviously you'll say to me, like, like the boys who Thrash Bush or the boys who, like, whatever, Roy Yards, whatever. Like, you knew about them and you had heard their names and stuff.
Yeah.
But see, when you think about it, how many of these boys are actually still alive or are still functioning at that where they've got a good name, a name even that's feared, because they're not talking about. There'll
certainly be a lot passed away, won't there? And then a lot of them are lost in addiction as well, aren't they?
And I think this is where it's like, where are we realising that?
And again, it stems from childhood trauma stuff as well. A lot
childhood trauma.
Yep.
Just going back to what I was saying, with the jail getting the money for the prison to rehab. So that's a fantastic idea, right? It's brilliant. So let's get boys into rehab. Let's get them well. They're getting 12 weeks in rehab, and see if you don't have a care manager or a social worker or additional supports in place, they're then putting them into a hostel. How conducive is that?
Back into the lines then.
So is that an effective method of support for someone that's left prison and we're saying, look, we're going to invest in you, we're going to put you into a treatment facility to help you get well, but at the end of that, actually, there's not going to be an accommodation for you to continue that journey of therapeutic wellness, but we'll put you into a hostel, which we're just going to surround you with the same guys that left jail with you, that's using the same drugs that you've just used. So ultimately, you're going to use. So, you know, like, we'll set up all these systems, and by the way, let me tell you, because there's not many that I've not read. See, in Scotland, we write policies beautiful. We are very good. The academics in Scotland, like, we could get, Sean, you know yourself, we could get them all on. The research and the policies that they write they're spot on. They're spot on the money, but we just can't get it down to delivery.
So it's the implementation.
We can't get it down to delivery, and that is down, and I solely believe it's down to the ADPs being the gatekeeper of where the money goes, because the money goes to that medical intervention.
See somebody that follows kind of Scottish politics, and I know you follow Scottish politics. How many of these guys do you think are on a kind of, when you listen to them, because I don't listen to Scottish politics, how many do you think are on a kind of realistic, kind of grounded level where they know what's going on in these kind of impoverished areas?
I wouldn't say any, I wouldn't say any of them know what's going on. No. And just going back to the thistle and stuff like that, you've got the Health Secretary, Neil Gray, he's telling you the thistle works. You know what I mean? He's been at it before. I remember seeing him on the news one night with John Swinney at it. According to him, they saved 17 people from dying, which is great. We said that earlier, great. And I think that's one of the problems with the thistle as well. It was sold as a wraparound care service. They come in here, safe injecting equipment, whatever it may be, but there is also then a progression on to treatment services, housing was a big thing they spoke about. We know through our work in North Lanarkshire, and it'll be the same in Glasgow, there's no the housing stock there for people, hence the reason why they end up back in places like hostels.
So do you think, see if you're
These guys
like,
have no got a clue what's going on in the street. That's no kid on.
It's like I think when, see if you're to take like, so see Scottish politics, what see even taking it at a local level then, right? Because I don't know, again, I'm not a great way, but at a local level, do you think
it's becoming a form of showbiz? I would say.
Do you think they're getting fed
across the board?
That is what like, it's obviously like, if that like comes and tells me, so if I'm working for you, just say you're the CEO of SISCO and it goes huge and you're coming at me and you trust me and I'm telling you, I know, it's working that way. Like we've got it sorted. You're going to take my word for that, right? Is there a possibility that do you know what I mean? Like it's just no getting fed up the chain, like the realistic nature, or
it's not because the English system, and probably you would need probably somebody like Tracy McFaul to speak on this for the Scottish Recovery Consortium actually. So the way the English system works around the addiction field is it's outcome driven, right? So they don't get
Ash
paid.
Regan was talking about that. Like she was
they
actually quite
don't
liked her.
get paid unless they get the outcomes, right? Which I believe is right. So if I'm saying to you that I can guarantee the Scottish Government that 83% of the people that we support will not return to prison, right? I think it's 84 than our statistics just went up because we're able to retain a wee bit more with our numbers than now. So I think our stats, when we do our strategy, our stats have went up. But
so is that use that 84% of your people aren't going back?
84% retention.
That's mental, Natalie. Because
84% retention.
I can only go like see, take a top end for example. I swear to God, and I'm being so generous with this, a 10% success rate to get to the Cass Huntly, and that's me being very generous. I would say it's much lower than that.
None of our lifers have returned, Sean. Not one that we have supported has returned to prison.
So why do they know? Why do you
away.
think? Because this is what annoys me. See, like obviously I'm getting a wee bit annoyed. That is what it is. But see, when you look at like the even take prison, and you look at like Johnny Steele and all the kind of boys that went, Jimmy Boyle, the worst prisoners in the Scottish thing, and you took them in a special unit. Look at what happened. Do you know what I mean? When they actually got that kind of real humanity kind of change. Like not there was only like I think it was like 3 out of 43 of the worst prisoners in Scotland reoffended, and then Natalie's got an 83% success rate. But why implementing? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think the thing is we're too vocal, Sean. The bottom line is we're too vocal, and the only reason we have that success rate is because we do so many favours. It's probably going to become a point for me where I say, although I work for a charity, when do I stop becoming a charity? Because I give my time for free all the time. Like I'm going to leave here and I'm going to meet somebody else to give them my time because they're really struggling. The lassie's just out the jail. She's not getting any supports. But the reality is that's taking away time from my family.
Definitely.
The only reason we've got that success rate, Sean, is because you've designed the service.
Aye.
I didn't design it. I had the ability to recognise right away, I can't go into a men's environment and think that I've got the knowledge to design a service that's going to work. That's unrealistic. So what I said to you was, how can we create something that's going to work for the boys that are inside this jail? Now, but again, if Scottish Government were to co-design and co-produce things, what they'll get is a system that works. So that's still working in the jail because that legacy is this is for prisoners, run by prisoners. So you created a legacy that will be forever lasting and that will continue to work because it's like, we're no grasses in here and this is where you can get honest and it's not about, we don't glamorise using drugs or violence or anything like that, but it's a space to speak about it, do you know what I mean, and not judge boys based on their...
Because I don't know if you remember that, like when going back, like I was very much like, because it was, I can't remember who it was that came to me and said, I think you'd gone really well with Natalie. It was an officer.
Julie Cray, probably.
Was it Julia? Was it Julia? Rab, maybe Rab? I can't remember, but somebody said, I think you'd be really good with Natalie, and I was like, I said, it's not really my thing, recovery and all that. I don't really, at the time it wasn't. I was like so just, I went out, like I just went out and that was it. And I remember and a lot of it, I learned so much for that, like so much, and even being able to build it and like and weigh you and stuff. It was like it was such a good journey though for me, and it probably got me through the tap end. Do you know what I mean? There was like definitely probably got, and but it also changed my opinion on what was when I was listening to the boys and I was like taking in what they were saying and the struggles that they were having, and possibly you could have even been like part of that problem, like at times in the past or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And you were like looking at yourself differently then. You were looking at like, well, if I'm thinking it's okay for people and I'm telling people it's okay to use drugs or whatever, it's no okay, like, but no in a bad way, no like pure shooting down and punish them, but a bit of knowledge and always build up the knowledge together.
Reflecting on things.
I think the recovery community is very, very fragmented, man. Like so fragmented, and I think
if again that's down to funding, Sean. That's down to what happened with funding. Is we segregated the recovery communities because we create a funding pot and everybody's like rats and they all scramble for the same funding pot, and then it creates such a divide. And then with that, everybody wants to be the best, isn't it? So it's like the north is the best, the east is the best, the west is the best. So, you know, we start to create a divide, and that's when people with long-term recovery start to argue with each other because they're in a sector. So then they start to argue based on sectors, do you know what I mean? But the bottom line is, anybody that works in this field ultimately is in it because they want people to get better.
Aye.
So, again, what the Scottish Government need to look at is, you need to determine, what does harm reduction mean? What does harm reduction mean? Because if it means 90% investment into medicine and keeping people unwell, that's not reducing the harm. That's keeping people unwell.
It's just a maintenance.
It needs to be 50-50. Like as somebody that hates inequality, man, I look at the courts right and outside it, you've got this wee woman sitting with the scales, and the scales of justice are balanced. That's the same as the drug field. It needs to be balanced money. 50% is going into medical, right? 50% is going into therapeutic, which means that, you know, Phoenix Futures have got more resources and they've got more community hubs and they've got more drop-ins, they've got more SISCOs in every single street corner. Like, that there needs to be, when I first got into recovery, like, there was so many wee great community resources, and then there was a shift in the Scottish Drugs Forum. We brought out a new piece of legislation and we shut all the community resources down. Your New Horizons, all your great places that were working really, really well for people, we shut them down. But I would be really, really keen for you to have a podcast. I would love to watch a podcast with ministerials, MPs and the ADPs. Because I think that alcohol and drug...
They're more than welcome
I think
to come
that,
on.
that alcohol, there needs to
manage
be an investigation into the alcohol and drug partnerships, because I definitely think that's something that's where we're failing.
I mean, I could open up, I'd be happy to open, like, get maybe 3 people that are kind of vocal, that are against kind of stuff, and have ADP and ministerial people. Anybody that kind of wants to can drop me a message and we'll get it sorted, because I'm at the point now where I'm like, see if we don't change stuff to the underpinning trauma, I'm fed up. I'm honestly fed up. I'm getting fed up telling people that it's trauma and poverty that's driving this thing. It's and then I don't know. You're getting society that's latching on to billionaires and stuff. Like, it's mad. It's to me, and that's who they're looking at as saviours and stuff. And I'm going, that person's fucking policies are going to erode everything that you've got as a working class person, and they're hiding it under a guise of maybe like whatever the guise is, but they're hiding and they're eroding every single working class thing we've got, and that's why we're seeing such a massive rise in trauma, and people are starting to come out now, right? People are starting to come out and say, I was like abused as a child and stuff like that, and look at Fragmented and stuff. They won't even look at it. They won't even publicise things about it. Do you know what I mean? And then I don't.
And trauma's not what we need to remember is trauma informed. We need to that needs to be gone, right? Because we're years away from that. Trauma's not a word. Trauma's what happened to your body.
Yeah.
Trauma is how you feel. Trauma is how you respond to situations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, trauma is, for me, my trauma is my sat-nav to getting things right and to getting things wrong. But ultimately, like, I'm always going to be meerkat hypervigilant because of my trauma. That's never, it's not a common cold. It's never going to go away. You know,
I also think we've lost our empathy a bit as a society, haven't we?
Yeah, no,
because we polish words like trauma informed, and then we lose the authenticity of what trauma actually means.
Like, I'll try
the trauma of what's happening in Palestine, you know, that nobody is now at a place where they're absolutely shocked with it because we polish all the words.
It's very clever the way they do things, and listen, people entitled to their political views. I don't mind anybody. I'll talk to anybody about politics. Andy knows that better. Andy, you know what I mean? But I think as what Andy says, is a huge thing. We've lost empathy.
But I mean, even like going back to the Thistle, obviously I've had an interest in this because of the nature of the service. Do you know what I mean? If I try and talk to my mates about it and that, they're not interested at all in the Thistle.
No.
Couldn't care less.
I know.
You know what I mean?
And the people that watch really this will only be people that are like interested in I mean, obviously maybe no, because we've spoken about the prison and stuff, people get different people watching it, but you're right. It's a niche kind of thing, and you can go in and bang on about it. But until people, I think there's a veil being pulled down. That's only my opinion. I think there's a veil being pulled down, and there's a lot of things that are going on now that's dividing everybody. And I get it, understand that. But see, until we come together, and it's the same with recovery. See, until you come together, it's just going to get worse. You're just going to keep spreading the problem, getting more fragmented, and
I mean, if you think he likes the Thistle, which is obviously what we were talking about earlier. Be interested. They say in one of the articles there that they'll learn a lot about the Thistle between the first 3 and 6 months of the service. So it's been open since the 13th of January now. So you're 5 months in, and you're 6 months in.
No, we will definitely.
Where does that end? That's a 3-year pilot.
Oh, they're already shouting they're going to build another one, and we've not even piloted it yet.
I think there's a pilot. Well, apparently a pilot getting done in Edinburgh.
Right, but if you read the articles I'm reading, Glasgow Live, Scottish Mail on Sunday.
There's money in it, but Andy, there's money in it.
But if you live in one of the communities that's earmarked for it,
your house price is going down and everything. And listen, it's unfair because it then stigmatises the user, and it's like.
But what the guys say there, like Alan Casey and that, well, there was problems here before. That's why it was earmarked for here. It's.
No, I get it. See the people with the counting, I get it, man. I understand, like, your house price has just been down 20 grand, like, whatever. Like, there's loads of things that you're going to be annoyed at, but that's society. That's us as a society. It's not because anything else, bar the society, I don't want a house beside the Thistle. That's why your house price is going down. It's not because...
What happens with the Thistle moving forward?
I think what we need to, I think that it would have been good, actually, if the guy for the streets was on it as well, because I think that... The activists that are out campaigning, they need to be aware that they're creating a lot of stigma between the residents. So what's happening if you're going out there and campaigning that we know that it's probably not going to work, right? That's the reality. We don't need to argue and campaign about it. We can speak calmly about it. We know that it's not going to work, but if you're actively out campaigning and getting all the counting together and you're all meeting in a pub and, you know, everybody's like adrenaline and dopamine's running high, what you're creating is you're creating stigma for the using addict. And that's the very thing that we're trying to eradicate is the stigma attached to, you know, people are accessing something to get well. That's the bottom line, do you know what I mean? But it's just that that's not going to work. But, you know, we need to watch with all these people that are, you know, let's meet up at St. Luke's and let's meet up here and let's talk about the big problem. Well, if you get all these grannies and aunties that have been in the counting for years and seen these problems, what they're going to start to do is absolutely hate addicts and alcoholics. So again, we don't see the trauma and why is that wee guy in a bogging car park injecting in his groin? Why is that wee guy risking death? Do you know what I mean? So I would have liked the guy for the streets to be on just for that message to be him. Just, you know, we need to be dead mindful if we as human beings are saying our job is to try and eradicate stigma and create compassion and empathy, then we need to watch what empathy looks like when we're gassing up a community to say, that shouldn't be there, that shouldn't be there. Then
I personally am not against
something
it.
Like somewhere like the Carlton, where there's a young team that are more than capable of starting to.
Oh, bonkers! They'll just set it in fire. They'll just petrol bomb it. They'll just
set about addicts and stuff. Like they will. Like that's what will happen. You end up getting people done in.
The problem becomes so.
I think the fear was, oh my God, everybody's going to be down there punting and blah 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 blah. And the reality is, there's just access to drugs anywhere you can get to. I can go into my phone and there's apps and you can get access to drugs. Do you know what I mean?
And you watch these new. I know
the lamppost in the town, you can actually scan a QR code and it takes you right into a store where you can buy THC cannabis vapes.
You see a lot
That's
of that.
mental. Do you know what I mean? Like my son actually sent a picture and went, "Mum, I swear to God, this is on a lamppost in the town," and I'm like,
there's a lot of that
way.
in here,
There's drug dealers jumping about with
QR code
the
cannabis,
hanging machines and all, card machines.
Yeah. And that's all you see on your Snapchat stories as well. Like, not on mine, obviously, but like my oldest boy will be like, look what Charlie's punting, look what this one's punting, da da da. And I'm just like,
it's very open, isn't it?
I'm like, they've got that on their story. What the? But they don't care because they'll just have it as emojis. We've got this, that. And
no, you're right. I mean, you say like you're doing there, and obviously they're like people are saying, people are punting on that, but people are going to punt it anywhere, aren't they? They're like, the whole.
Aye, they were punting long before the thistle, weren't they?
Aye.
Long before it. Drugs are so accessible.
And the whole thing is,
maybe it's become a bit more visual. I don't know. I'm no there.
No, that's what I mean. I don't know.
We're making it more visual. That's the thing. We're making it more visual because there's more media representation.
It's a lot more highlighted.
You've got your activists down there campaigning against it. The bottom line is that's never changed on there. Like I said, when in the mid-90s, when I done that interview with the Carlton Athletics, they were embedded down there. That problem was just as bad then, if not worse than it is now. Do you know what I mean?
I always remember the Carlton being that, when people talking about that was the place where
everybody was ball deep, and that's where you would also go for good drugs. You'd either go to Postal or the Carlton.
Carlton or Postal, that was in Ricasey for a while, but that was like that. I remember that. I remember people talking about it, and it was where the good drugs were.
That's where you would go, either the Carlton or Postal, because you're guaranteed to get good drugs. Do you know what I mean? So, safe consumption rooms, nah, they're not going to work. Not one isolated consumption
I think all
room.
the concerns everybody had about the consumption room have sort of bore fruit, you know what I mean? An isolated centre, no wraparound support.
So why do you think, I mean, obviously we're coming up to the end, right, we're just kind of hanging rights, but why do you think they're going to start trying to invest more? It can only be that there's money in it.
Well, they've committed, they committed at the start, didn't they, the 2.3 million over the 3 years.
Aye.
If there is talk of another one, I've not read anything about potentially.
Aye.
It's not something I've seen, but time will tell, eh?
No.
So it's an interesting story to follow, obviously, because the line of work we're in as well.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
well, I'll definitely obviously it was just unfortunate. Like a couple of people couldn't come today, but once the stats come out for the end of the year and we've got statistics and we can work on, we'll do another one and we'll look at the stats and we'll go right into it and just see how well it's working. Do you know what I mean? But at this moment in time, again, you're only going with. I can only go with what I know and I see, and I can only tell you what I'm seeing, and it's no good. Mm-hmm. There's nothing.
So it'd be interesting to see what they're learning is, eh? They're telling you in the initial article prior to opening that they'll learn a lot within the first 3 to 6 months. So it'd be interesting if they could share that learning, do you know what I mean?
But how big is your balls need to be, Andy, to come out and go, if you're the manager on the Thistle, right?
And
you're on 50 grand a year, right? How big's your balls to come and go, this is pish, this is mental. So you're going to come out and
so again,
keep your wage,
it's massaged again,
you
and
don't
then
want
we're
to lose
just
your
on
job.
the same cycle,
Do you know
aren't
what I
we?
mean?
Until we're open and honest, regardless of how bad a situation is, what's going to change?
As a society, I think that's a huge problem. We're no open and honest as a society as what's going on. We like to kid on there's no Scotland's this great. Scotland's fucked. You walk down any town centre in Scotland, it's hopeless. It's pure hopeless. People don't even say hello to each other anymore. You couldn't get a nod in the desert. Like it's really. You can feel it. You can feel the hopelessness, and I don't think enough people are talking, but that's only my opinion. Like people, I'm sure there's people out there that are gaining for it. Do you know what I mean? But again,
or oblivious to it, but depending on their lifestyle, and
I think people just need to watch out for what they wish for, in the way that, like, if you're a working class person, lower class person, please be careful what you wish for, because you're very close. We're all one paycheck away from your own benefits and stuff like that, and possibly having a lapse or whatever, or all these things. So please be careful what you're wishing for, because there are very, very rapidly and very fucking annoyingly, cunningly eroding everything that the working class have got. But that's only my opinion anyway. But listen, I'll give you the kind of, so what have you kind of learned today, Andy, or what's your kind of final thing?
It's just been good to meet Natalie and obviously hear her experiences throughout the years, and particularly learning about the prisons and stuff like that, and just been good to be on, really.
No, thanks.
Obviously watch the show regularly, so
been part of it,
to finally be in the chair's been all right. But no, it's been a good day. Thanks for having us on, Sean. Cheers.
What about yourself, Natalie? I mean, obviously I know you're probably similar to me, but
I think just always coming on, Sean, and just spending a wee bit of real time with people, actually, just to talk about the problem. But like I say, I think for me, with the safe consumption rooms, we need genuinely, not tokenistically, we need genuinely to sit down and co-produce and co-deliver things with lived experience. No getting me guys that are 30 days off a script and saying there's £50, one sit in a room and say what I want you to say, so that we can create something that we think's going to work. My view has not changed on the safe consumption site. I don't believe an isolated space is conducive for Scotland. I believe it's 15 people didn't die. Fantastic. But where are they 15 people now? Where is their well-being now? What do we determine as harm reduction now in Scotland? Because if all we're doing is naloxone, then that's not...
It would be interesting to see where the 15 people are now.
I would love to know where the 15 people are. Are they still accessing the Thistle? Are they still here? Where are they? It would be good for the next one that we do for a representative from the Thistle to come on and speak about it, to maybe speak about their past their 6 months. So where are you at? Where do you see your successes? Where is your... But probably, and I think you had a politician on, I can't remember her name.
Ash Regan.
Ash.
I liked Ash.
So Ash is probably one of the most authentic...
Definitely.
Genuine,
I didn't agree with everything she said, but she was
very, very authentic, very genuine. Didn't agree with everything that she had to say, but she's bang on when she says that we are input driven, where we need to be outcome driven.
Definitely.
So I would be more happy if the Scottish Government says to me, right, I'll give you £500,000 every 5 years, but here is the outcomes that you need to achieve. Because I know that I'm achieving the outcomes. The bottom line is I go to my job because I genuinely care about getting somebody well, as somebody that was unwell for so long. So we are genuinely not just trauma-informed, we're trauma-responsive. So if a wee guy comes into me and says, I can't go into that group, I'm all over the place, I'll say, do you want to go in and say, Jude or Lorraine, why don't you go in and get 10 minutes with one of the counsellors? Go and get yourself regulated, wee man, what's going on with you? Do you know what I mean? That's what trauma-responsive is.
Yep.
Responding to knowing that wee guy can't go into... So that is then outcome-driven, because we are meeting that wee guy's needs where he's at. We know we can't put him into a group because he's hyper-vigilant. Whatever's happened in his day, we need to give him time. We need to give him space. Then we put him into a group. Then we get him well. That's all outcomes. That's what we should get our funding based on, or what we just done in Parliament. Now, it's the most radical thing. Ian Corbett, who was one of the board members of SISCO, works for CYCJ,
I know who
part of
Ian,
Strathclyde University. Cracking guy, lived experience, works with the young team in Parliament. The young team in Pullman wanted to do something quite radical, so Ian went up to help them. He done the Activate course with them. They finished it, and one of the young team says, "This can't be the end. I want to do something else with the community development degree that I've just got." So they wanted to get a pot of funding, and that pot of funding to be distributed out to the community, to services that worked with the justice system. So they get 70 grand for the Cora Foundation, and the young people created a Dragon's Den. So we applied, so you could apply for £10,000. So we applied to the young people, got shortlisted to go through it, and it was a panel, just like the Recovery Cafe interviews, it was a panel of 5 of the young team interviewing all the applicants to ask us what our idea was. And see, that for me, that's how funding should work.
Yeah.
You should have a panel of lived experience sitting there, because they'll know authenticity and service providers or not. And they wee guys could see the authenticity of what people genuinely wanted to spend that money on. And we were successful because they could see the drive, the compassion. We're in the jail, you know, the project that we're doing, we're taking that back into them anyway. So for me, Sean, like, my views will not change on safe consumption. My views will not change on Scottish Government. My views will not change on how we are getting it wrong. And the only time they'll change is when we have got equal representation round day tables, not just as a tokenistic gesture to write on their tick box exercise, but equal pay, equal share, equal producing the stuff, you know. You've got a degree, Sean. I've got a degree. We're not two dafties with lived experience and trauma. We're two very intelligent people that's more than capable. That's what I want to see moving forward. But then on the next one, ADP, Thistle, you should be on this.
No
Come
chance.
on it.
Look, listen,
Speak to the
open
public.
invite. I've done it a few times. I've gave an open invite to them and never.
Speak to the public. Come and let the public know how good your service is, and eradicate the stigma down in the Calton.
Come on, definitely. More than welcome. Any can get in touch with me. Any time, and we'll have a debate, but I can't see them coming on. Can't see it. They'll hide and tell us they're doing great, and John Swinney will tell us we're doing great as well. So listen, thank you very much for coming on. And again, we will have another part to talk about this in more detail, but thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Sonny boy.
Cheers.